podcast.
All right, and we're recording. What's up, Fight Bros podcast listeners? Coming at you today with Fight Bros MMA show number 54. We're partnering with Titans of the Cage again for the second time. We're going to be interviewing fighters for their upcoming event, Titans of the Cage 34, on Saturday, October 21st at the Wytheville Meeting Center at 4 p.m. So our first guest today, he's going to be co-main eventing Titans of the Cage 34 for the Bantamweight title. We got Addison Hendry. Addison, thank you for joining us today, man.
What's up, man?
So, man, let's get the listeners to learn a little bit about you. Where are you from?
So I grew up in Burlington, North Carolina. That's like a little bit outside of Greensboro. It's a smaller town, but it's growing.
Okay. Now, is that where do you still currently reside there and fight there from there with your
Yeah.
team?
Yeah, I train and live there. Yes, sir.
Okay. What gym do you fight out of?
O'Malley Uprise MMA under
Okay.
Rory O'Malley. He's my coach, head trainer.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
I also I do some training. I split my camp up over there at Hometown Martial Arts in Raleigh, North Carolina.
So you do a little bit of it in Burlington and in Raleigh.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how did you get started into MMA? Like, how did you get, getting going in this amateur fighting here?
So when I was a kid, my dad was a Marine. So he always had me like into working out and just physical fitness in general. And I was obsessed with Bruce Lee movies and stuff like that. And eventually one of my cousins, he found a school, O'Malley Uprise, and he hit my mom up when I was like 12 years old. This is like 2014. And I went to my first MMA class, and ever since then I never looked back. And I slowly started taking on fights as a junior amateur, and then now as a amateur.
I like it. Were you kind of like an athlete coming up in your youth and just kind of wanted to get into this?
Yeah, like I said, I was always into like physical fitness. I never really was much into sports. I never was great at any basketball or football or anything. But once I found martial arts, I was like, wow, like this is something I can get into. I love this. And like I said, man, ever since I started, I just never looked back. I love it to death.
I like it, man. So this is something I like to ask a lot of our fighters on, especially some of our amateur fighters fighting with Titans of the Cage. With amateur MMA, a lot of people don't understand. These guys are working 9 to 5s and training in between. So I just wanted to ask you, kind of, what are you doing to kind of combat that? Do you teach classes at your gym and then incorporate your training schedule in between that?
So yeah, you're right. That's a really tough thing. It's hard for a lot of fighters to figure that out. I myself, luckily, my coach is also kind of my boss. I do work at the gym. I teach kids classes, and I teach a Saturday MMA class as well. And then I help out with one classes. If the coach can't make it in, I'd take over the class or whatever. I also am a little bit of a landscaper, little side hustle, and I help my coach. Also, we have a CBD company.
Okay.
Try Hemp Co. And so I've got a few different things going on.
Nice, man. I like it. You got your foot in a few different things. So you mentioned you coach classes there, you train there. So it seems to me like you're taking this pretty serious and want to get to the next level. What are your goals right now that you want to get out of fighting?
My goal is obviously to go pro. I'm 22, and I do have a lot of fights, but a lot of them were as a junior, so it doesn't show my actual record. I do actually have quite a bit of miles on the tank already. It's really just more about timing and getting the right fights and the right experience in before I make that decision to say, hey, it's time to go pro now. I want to make sure I've dealt with everything I can deal with.
Yeah, I feel that, man. So kind of to explain to our listeners, so if you look you up on the website Tapology, it'll have on here that as an amateur, you've had 4 fights. So you mentioned juniors. So to kind of explain, that to our listeners, what's the difference and why, that record that you look at on Tapology and how many fights is different, from where you did juniors.
Yeah, right. So I've always been in the IKF. I was actually doing a lot of kickboxing before I did MMA. I fought in the IKF East Coast Classic 3 separate times. I've been to numerous of their point kickboxing events. Like I said, I've been involved in this game for so long. It's inevitable that I would go pro. That's just that's my main goal.
I like it. Now, is it kind of just you said it's inevitable. Is that decision kind of led up to when your coaches feel like it's time and the right matchup and
yes,
just the right promoter reaching out at the time?
Yeah. So my coach is also kind of my manager. I don't ever I always talk to him before I make any decisions about who I'm taking on next in a bout or whatever. Yeah, we're very close, and it's very much on him when he thinks I'm ready.
Okay. Now, you're going to be fighting up here soon for the bantamweight in the bantamweight division. Have you always fought at bantamweight?
Yes. Yeah, I've always fought at bantamweight. I don't know if I'm quite big enough yet to go to that 45-pound division. Probably need to fill in a little bit more.
Okay.
Eat some steaks.
So, fighting at bantamweight, how, kind of alluding to what we said earlier, amateur MMA, these fighters have a lot of other stuff going on. Those guys in the UFC, they got a lot of time to sit there and dedicate to that weight cut. So how is your weight cut to 135 balancing out everything else you got going
on? It's me and my coach have it down to a science. I've done this cut so many times. It's more about just dieting down and then cutting those last 10 pounds of water weight off. You know what I mean? Staying dehydrated the least amount of time as possible. That way I can recover and eat and rehydrate for the fight.
I like it. So what do you normally, if you don't mind me asking, what do you normally walk around at?
Out of fight camp, I'm lifting weights and stuff. I'm usually a bit heavier. I'm about 155, 156 walking around.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad weight cut at all.
But no, not at all.
Because, some of our listeners, they don't understand some of these guys in the UFC and stuff. I mean, I'm sure, some of them that fight at 170 are walking around at, 210 and stuff and then cutting down to 170.
Yeah. Yeah, that I couldn't imagine that. That's not something I personally would do. Like I'll do a bit of a cut, but I would never yeah, that's a lot of weight. Yeah. That's dangerous.
So, I've seen with your fight history that you fought with Titans of the Cage a few times. How did you get involved with this promotion?
So my first fight for Titans of the Cage was actually an Expo kickboxing bout. I got to Titans of the Cage because I actually had an older teammate who he's not currently active anymore, but he was fighting under Titans of the Cage. So of course I went. It was just convenient to go fight on the same cards as him. And I had an Expo kickboxing bout. That was my first one.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of fighters that I talk to on here, kind of just coaches have that connection with the promoters at Titans in the Cage, or teammates that fought, and it kind of made the path for some of those teams to get more of their fighters.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about this. I was at the last Titans of the Cage 33, and you had a really good fight against Isaiah King. I remember watching that fight, and I was like, man, this is fight of the night, like a really good technical fight. You put on a great striking performance. Just a really good technical fight. He was, very lengthy. So I immediately after watching it, I was like, man, that was fight of the night. Did that eventually end up getting fight of the night too by them?
I don't believe it did actually. I think someone else got it that night. Yeah,
okay.
Someone else got it.
Okay, but
I'm not sure who it was though. That was Isaiah, that dude is very tough. Well, I knew coming into that one, he's a very dangerous striker. Me and him, our styles are actually similar in a lot of ways. So I naturally kind of understood kind of how I needed to go about that fight. But he was tough and he gave me a hell of a fight. So kudos to that dude. He's tough.
Yeah, that was a great fight. I'm sure everybody in the crowd that night was impressed. That was definitely, the people's fight of the night, definitely that night.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I was pretty sore after that one.
So let's get right into it, man. October 21st at the Wytheville Meeting Center for the Bantamweight Championship. You're fighting James Huffman. Tell me a little bit about how your training camp's been going and preparing for the fight against him.
So training camp is going perfect. No injuries, absolutely no injuries. I've been able to recover, train as hard as I can. Rest. My nutrition is great right now. My weight's on point. My cardio is the best that it's ever felt in the grappling and the striking department. I just feel the best I've ever felt right now, and I feel prepared to take this man out.
I love it, man. You mentioned earlier in the podcast that you divide your training camp into two different gyms. Can you tell us, what are some advantages of doing that?
So, like I said, Burlington's a little bit of a smaller place, so it's kind of hard for me to get working with a lot of different bodies. You know what I mean? For sparring and different drills. So it was best for me to try to progress my game by just working with different people. And that team over there is great. That's my second home right there. Hometown Martial Arts. Shout out Trevor Hayes and Dylan McGrath, my grappling coach. Those guys are awesome dudes. They've helped me out a lot.
I like it. Now, what with this title opportunity coming on October 21st, what would it mean to you to win that Bantamweight Championship on October 21st?
It would mean a lot to me. It's been a long time coming. I feel like I deserve it. I think this is the perfect fight to prove a lot of people wrong. A lot of people probably view my grappling game a certain way, and I think this is going to be a perfect fight to show that I actually do have really good grappling, and I'm excited to show it.
Now you said people view your grappling game a certain way. Do you just feel like you haven't got a good enough opportunity to show it? I know your fight with Isaiah King, I mean, y'all just kept it on the feet for most of it.
Yeah, I feel like people haven't gotten to see. My past fights, it just hasn't gone there. And I did have a fight against Emmanuel Simpson last year in February. And that dude from Carolina Combat, I had a rough night that night. I fell short of decision, and that fight really taught me a lot about myself and things I needed to improve on. And then, of course, it was kind of frustrating because me and Isaiah, the next fight, just kickboxed pretty much the whole time. So I'm just looking forward to showing the diversity in my game. I think it's grown a lot, especially the past year.
I like it. Now, this is something I always like to ask our guests too. Now, we know you're into fighting. Do you like to be a fan of fighting too, rather than just performing it? Like, do you watch UFC, boxing, Bellator in your free time?
Yeah, I watch quite a bit of UFC. I love the UFC. That's where I'm planning on going one day, hopefully. I also like watching One Championship. I think they put on a lot of good fights out there. Good fighters.
Now,
Yeah, I watch it all, man.
Now, who would you say is your favorite fighter?
Man, that's really hard for me to say.
Or just favorite fighters in general?
I don't really have a favorite one. I like the way Sean O'Malley fights, of course. Who else? Marab. I like Marab. Of course, there's the McGregors and the John Joneses, and recently Sean Strickland's been one of my favorites. That dude's funny. I like that guy a lot.
Me as well, yeah.
But honestly, I love anyone who steps in that cage. I'm a fan of it all. I love everybody.
I like it. Now, is there anybody that you kind of influence your skills off of, or really hone in on what they're doing and try to incorporate it into your game?
Peter Yan is someone I really like to study and analyze. I think me and him kind of have similar builds, and we're in the same weight division. So, yeah, I would definitely say like a Peter Yan has definitely had a little bit of an influence on my game.
Okay. So last kind of sorry about that. So last kind of questions, I want to ask you some fun questions here. So, when you make it to that professional level, what's your dream fight?
My dream fight? Man, right now, of course, Sean O'Malley, that's my weight class. I would love to fight that guy, but I really like Cheeto Vera and Corey Sandhagen. I think those would be really fun striking fights. I just really like their striking, to be honest.
Oh, I like it. Now, when you're preparing to go into that fight, do you have like a pregame ritual, a certain playlist, a certain song that you're listening to get you in that right mindset before you enter the octagon?
Yeah, I don't really have a pre-fight ritual or anything. Like the day of the fight, it's obviously a lot of nerves. I just try to stay calm. I just the day of the fight, sometimes I'll go walk at a park, just be in nature, just vibe out, I don't like to sit there and dwell on things. I kind of just address the fight when the fight's got to be addressed. You know what I mean? Just try to be calm, composed, and patient.
I like it. So, last two questions. These are directly related to your fight, October 21st. So, let's say October 21st, little kid in the crowd, first time fan seeing you fight. What sort of impression do you want them to leave with that night of you?
Just I would like to just kind of display that I'm a true fighter at heart, and no matter what happens, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna try my best every single time I go out there, and I would want to just leave the impression that I'm a warrior, and I believe that anybody can do what they put their mind to. That's what I'm coming with.
I like it, man. Well said. So October 21st, you're meeting James Huffman for that bantamweight strap. Any predictions?
My prediction is, you know, I believe, this is no disrespect or anything on him personally. I just believe truly in my heart that I have more tools to win this fight. I believe that he has, and I think he knows that he has one way that he can win this fight. And I'm just not going to play into that. I'm not going to play into his game. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to play my game. And he's going to have to deal with a lot more coming at him than I'm going to have to deal with coming at me. And that I believe that at the end of the day. And that's all I can really say.
Hey, I like it. So this last little bit of the podcast, Addison, I just want to give you the floor, give you time. Shout out your teammates. Shout out your sponsors. The floor is yours.
Yes. Shout out Triad Hemp. Shout out Hometown Martial Arts. Trevor Hayes, Dylan McGrath. Shout out O'Malley Uprise MMA here at home. Shout out all the boys that I train with. Brandon, Will, Kelvis. Everybody involved. Shout out Rory. Just everyone that believes in me, all the fans. Thank you. I'm doing this one for you guys. I'm getting that belt. I'm bringing it home for Burlington, and we're gonna keep it for a while.
Hey, I like it, man. Addison, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, man. Best of luck October 21st. Really appreciate you coming on here and talking with us today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, Titans of the Cage fans, get your tickets for Titans of the Cage 34 Saturday, October 21st at the Wytheville Meeting Center. You can get your tickets online at www.titansofthecagefights.com. Thank you, Addison. I'll end this recording and then just finish out with you here. Thanks for listening to the Fight Bros podcast. If you like what you heard today, like us on Facebook and like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Appreciate all your support.